And now, it is time to cover the final game of the original trilogy that Wily Wars covers, Mega Man 3, or Rockman 3 as you see on this title screen here, because I'm using the Japanese version. But yeah, they actually managed to make this intro a tad more interesting than the NES one by actually having a picture of Mega Man there. Because if we remember the NES version of Mega Man 3, it was just literally the logo and press start, and like, how fucking boring can you get? Especially compared to 2, which has got like a really interesting opening cinematic type thing. Well, I say cinematic, it scrolls up a building, but it looks cool at least. I suppose at least this game's got a really cool opening theme, although it kind of loses the impact a bit in this version because Wily Wars also plays this song in Mega Man 1 for whatever reason. Because Mega Man 1 obviously doesn't have its own theme and they didn't want to just leave it blank, which I guess it makes sense, but it would be nice to have a new song for that. I'm just sort of bullshitting this so I can keep on the title screen so I can keep this music going for that little bit longer because I like doing that. But you know. Okay, press start already past me. So yeah, again, this game, it follows the Mega Man 2 formula of once again having 8 robot masters that you have to take down. And the first up is Snake Man, who I think Snake Man in himself, he's an example of they're running out of obvious ideas, so now they're having to sort of dig around a bit. And yeah, like, it fits as a boss with the whole kind of scaly aesthetic that the level has, but you know, it's feeling a little bit weird. Like, obviously not to Sheep Man type territory, I don't think. At least not yet, but that's Mega Man 10, which is its own thing. Though I do actually quite like Mega Man 10 overall, although I haven't played it in a long time because my first experience with the Mega Man series in general was actually Mega Man 9. And I remember I played the demo of that on Xbox Live, and naturally I kind of didn't really have much interest in it. I think that was my first experience. It was either that or Dr. Wily's Revenge on the Game Boy or the Virtual Console version. It's been a while, but I've come to really like this series, so who cares? Yeah, Snake Man's stage, it's nothing too special in terms of gimmicks or anything, at least not yet, but these enemies here can go kindly fuck themselves, because like, what I'm doing is I know I'm cocking up myself here and I'm jumping at the wrong time, but seriously I could do without them because they're really finicky to try to take down. And these ones are, again, to a degree, but we get to use this new technique Mega Man has in this game, which is obviously the slide technique. And I really like the slide, because it just, I don't know whether it's faster or whether it just feels faster, but it's nice to just slide around wherever I'm going sometimes. And yeah, that's me just casually jumping into the thing that he's throwing. This level looks a lot more kind of vibrant than it did in the NES one. I'm not sure whether I like that or not, because the original version of this level kind of had this certain sort of charm to it, in that it felt like a kind of robotic Snake's base. And I know that's a really fucking obvious thing to say, but taking into account Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric with Lyric's Lair, which granted some parts of it do look cool, but they don't really have the kind of atmosphere I would associate with the whole biologically inspired robotic type thing. I don't know. These things here that shoot out at you, don't stand on them moving parts while they're moving, because it is really obnoxious to try to get off of them again. Believe me when I say that. See, that's what you're meant to do to fight them guys. You're meant to let them drop their thing, not do that, and then sort of jump over them, then turn around and shoot, or just stay well back so they do their jump properly. But you know, when I'm in the heat of the moment playing the game, I don't tend to use my brain that much, so can be quite hit and miss in terms of gameplay quality, I'm sorry to say, but you know. Now we're leaving the factory type place and we're going into the sky for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. These things, because they move you like left and right a tad as they're going up, sometimes it's hard to judge your jumps properly. Like, I've got used to it over time, but when I first played this, like, this section did kind of screw me over a little bit. It's not that hard in itself, but more of a finicky thing. And the bullet bill enemies this time have cloud coats because, you know. I guess it fits the sky theme. But yeah, Snake Man, his boss in itself, it's not exactly the easiest thing to pull off. He has a distinct pattern, and when you clock onto the pattern, you can normally just take him down, but sometimes, because there's so much going on to his pattern of you having to shoot him at the right times, he can kind of catch you. And sometimes that is just because I'm not properly paying attention to what's going on, but there's a lot more complexity to his pattern than a lot of Mega Man bosses, so the only reason I'm really going to Snake Man first is because I really like using his weapon in some of the other Robot Master stages. Because his weapon is what you're seeing him do there, where he throws the little snakes that track along the ground. And that kind of, if you throw a few of them out, you can take down the kind of minor enemies on the floor. And I like doing that because it just lets you progress without having to keep stopping and starting, really. And this wasn't a particularly good run of this boss, to be fair. That's it, Snake Man, just keep jumping, you're not annoying me at all, I swear. Yeah, the slowdown in Wily Wars really doesn't make this any easier either, so, you know, you just got to do what you can here, really. I've probably bitched about slowdown enough throughout this playthrough, but I'm going to keep on because there's a lot of places where it becomes really noticeable. With this boss in particular being one, as you see just a minute ago. And he's down. So that's 1 out of 8 down. One thing I noticed with this game is I think the levels seem to take that little bit longer than they did in, say, 2. Not sure whether that's because I'm not quite as familiar with 3 as I am with 2, so maybe 2 I'll just sort of rush through a bit quicker, I'm not sure, but it certainly feels like they take longer in 3. You got Search Snake! And we got a nice scaly green sort of colour for Mega Man's outfit. I really like this Robot Master, he's a top man. Yeah. I'd say I'm sorry, but I'm not at all sorry, I'm proud. Now this level, well more specifically this music track, I've said before there's some tracks that I think sound really good with the Mega Drive sound font. This is not one of them. This feels like very forced kind of computery sounding sort of thing going on. I don't like it that much compared to the NES take of it. I guess that's just kind of what happens really with certain songs. And a lot of the kind of things going on in this level, because it's Top Man and he's based on a spinning top, they've got that whole kind of dreidel sort of inspiration or motif going on with different robots, and I kind of think that's an interesting thing they got going. Not sure what's going on with these screw enemies, because they're in some of the other stages as well, but they just sort of connect together, then fly over towards you, and you can't shoot them while they're still connecting, you have to wait until they're together and moving before you can do anything. So just try not to run into them like an idiot, because that's very easily done. I don't even need to hit that guy because it gives me a new bit of health straight afterwards. And of course the materials are back in full swing. And I've got to say, in terms of the visuals here, like, it definitely looks more interesting than a lot of the kind of 8-bit base levels. Because they've got the slight green, I guess, kind of trim to some of the areas, and that's just better than having lots and lots of grey, like a lot of inside sections tend to be in not just Mega Man but games in general. There's our Garfield lookalike back, but it's him that I really notice how useful the Search Snake actually is, because you can just do that. You don't have to worry about actually jumping and fighting him, just throw a few of these snakes across the floor, they'll track their way up the wall and get him and knock him down pretty rapid. This is a section that I'm not sure how to do it without getting hit. I guess there's probably a certain weapon you can get that follows them up. I don't think the Search Snake does that particularly well, so I normally just have to take a hit at that section, but it doesn't really matter because you can sort of bum rush your way through the other ones that come up. And now we're getting on to the boss. Now, Top Man himself isn't weak to Search Snake, he's actually weak to the Hard Knuckle, which I obviously don't have yet, but he's got such an easy pattern, you don't need the Hard Knuckle. You wait for him to throw these things at you, you can shoot him while he's got them in the air, then when he's doing that spinning thing, just jump over him, because when he is spinning like that, you can't hit him, he sort of deflects your bullets, but otherwise just shoot, jump, and then rinse, repeat, you know, nothing difficult here whatsoever. Like, you don't even have to put too much effort into actually dodging them things. For the most part, you're doing more damage to him than it is to you. So just sort of take it by ear. Just make sure you keep shooting him. You'll be fine, really. That was an overly long animation. I think the animation is different depending on whether you kill a Robot Master with your weakness or whether you just hit him. I'm not sure whether it's specifically with the Buster or whether it's just with another weapon. Don't quote me on that, I'm just I think that's what's going on here. Or sometimes it just gives you a random explosion, I'm not too sure, but I should probably look into this sort of shit, but you know, I'm not exactly competent at all. Anyway, Shadow Man. Now Shadow Man, there's a little bit of conflict, I guess you could say, going on with his name, because obviously you got Shadow Man here in Mega Man 3, and in the Archie comics, in the Worlds Collide crossover, there's also another Wily robot called Shadow Man, who is based off Shadow the Hedgehog. So you got two characters now called Shadow Man, and you know. Anyway, this is a new guy for this game. I'm not going to play dumb like I did when we first LP'd this game. This is Proto Man. He's the prototype of Mega Man, really, but here he's sort of meeting up and he just randomly starts shooting us for, I don't know, lol. He's got a really predictable pattern, just slide under him, keep shooting, he'll give up after so long, so now actual difficulty. This particular stage, I actually preferred how this looked in the NES version, because there was like a really cool looking lava sprite going on, like lava background. This, like, there is the lava background obviously going on, but where they've got more colours to work with, there's less focus on the black tone in the lava and more just the different reds. And I think it's nice to have a bit of the black tone in lava because it kind of makes it more menacing looking. You've got the, not necessarily bright red, but maroonish red contrasts with black really well. I like that, but now because they've got different layers of reds that they're using, I'm not that big on it. And obviously sections where it's dark and you can't see are always fun, right? This is a particular trope I'm never fond of in levels, really. I'd rather just be able to see what I'm doing. And the Search Snake do actually help you out here, because they obviously follow the path of the wall, or the different jumps you gotta make, so just keep on using that if you don't know where to go. And these things, you can only hit them when they're mid-jump, but thankfully they're only one hit to kill them, so there's no biggie really. Just don't let them get too close, obviously, because otherwise that'll count as a hit. Oh look, section where you have to be careful with your jumps, because these kind of paratrooper type things, they're just enough over each platform that could screw you out of a jump. So I normally go over to the new one to kind of trigger them coming down, but then have to jump back just so they kind of don't knock me back, because otherwise you end up falling in the lava and looking like a tit. Nearly there. Oh, it's these kind of dragonfly type enemies. They've got a very specific pattern to them as well. They just sort of fall then zoom, hoping to zoom into you, but obviously just jump, they're no problem to dodge. And now here we have Shadow Man himself. Shadow Man actually has a really useful weapon in this game that's kind of a nerfed metal blade to a degree. It's not exactly the same thing, it sort of boomerangs back to you, but it's still really useful for similar kind of scenarios to the metal blades. But he's weak to the top spin, and as you can see from how many hits I just took in that very simple fight, the top spin's very risky to use because you have to get really close to the enemy. More often than not, the enemy will hit you in the process of you using it, so you just got to play it a little bit careful. It's a type of weapon I'm not that fond on, really. I guess there's the whole kind of risk thing, because the enemies that are weak to the top spin tend to be really weak to the top spin. Like, I think that took him out in either 3 or 4 hits, that fight just then, so there's nothing too stressful as long as you can spare yourself and not miss with a top spin, because if you don't pull off your top spin properly but take the hit anyway, that's obviously detrimental to you. This guy has a bit of a bright spark. That wasn't even funny, was it? But yeah, Sparkman's theme is one of the most memorable Mega Man 3 themes to me. Partially because I really like the Mega's take on it, called You've Sparked a War. That's one of my most memorable songs from that album, next to Don't Mess with Magnet Man, and a couple of others. I like the whole plug my teeth, because obviously after you've had Elec Man, who had the whole power plant sort of setting to his stage, you can't really do that again. And I guess on the surface it would feel like there's only so much you can do with electric enemies, so now they've just given him this kind of plug like visual style going on, which is kind of original compared to Elec Man, obviously. They didn't make the electric enemy into a sheep, so that's one thing it's got above Sheep Man. This section here, I believe last time I covered this game I just sort of rushed it past that, and I think I'm going to be doing the same in a later one. But I suppose I should actually play some of this game I'm Let's Playing, you know. But this is the Shadow Blade in effect. I'm trying not to go too over the top with the Shadow Blade in this stage, purely because Shadow Blade is Sparkman's weakness and I want to have some energy for when I fight him. But by the same token, they do give you a lot of energy in this game, so you can just refill yourself as and when you need to. In worst case, it's just a little bit of grinding in Mega Man. That's kind of the advantage to having the respawning enemies that kind of come back as soon as you leave the screen. If you need to restock anything, you can do it fairly easily. It's a little bit time consuming, and I don't like grinding in general, but the option's there if you need it. This is totally worthwhile, having to fall through like 3 screens. Them 3 screens do actually mean something later on in the game. Well, not mean something, but they actually have a use later on in the game, because of a gimmick that I don't like that we'll see later on, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Don't you love it when you have enemies moving at you across bottomless pits? It doesn't put any pressure on you whatsoever. Now it's time to go fight Sparkman. I love that one random jump they got going on there, so you got something a little different in the checkpoint door. But yeah, Sparkman is no difficulty whatsoever, just spam Shadow Blades at him. He'll go down. He's not, I don't think he's quite Bubble Man tier of just spamming him and he'll die, but it's almost there. It's just going with an electric thing rather than lead bubbles. Because bubbles are no threat whatsoever. Better absorb all that power, eh, Mega Man? And that was part 1 of Mega Man 3. I'll see you next time where we'll fight the remaining Robot Masters. See you then.